Hey, it's Joe from Home Studio Corner. While your typical audio engineer wears something like a gray t-shirt, black t-shirt, and jeans, back in the day, like when the Beatles were recording their first albums, the engineers actually wore white lab coats. Can you believe that? And here's the best part. They were called balance engineers. Why is that important? Back in the day, before the invention of multi-track recording, here's how a typical session would go. You would load in a band or an orchestra, you'd get all the microphones set up, and then they would perform the song straight to tape or to a wire recorder or to something. So they would go, however many microphones are out here, however many channels were available, and it wouldn't have been that many, and then they would mix that down to a mono or stereo recording. So it was reasonable for a band to come in, set up, and by the end of that session, they would have a finished mix. Today, it doesn't happen like that, but that's the way it was because there wasn't the option of recording just the cello section and then overdubbing something else. It was just limited. And the job of the engineer, or the balance engineer as they were called, was to get a good balance going to tape. They had to make sure that what they were hearing through the limited amount of processing they had available, maybe a limiter, maybe one EQ, they had to make sure everything was balanced in real time going down to tape. When I first heard that term balance engineer, it stuck with me because I feel like that's such a good description of what we do. Fast forward to today and we go by many names: recording engineer, mixing engineer, producer, or maybe just musician. Though the names have changed and we've inserted a lot in that middle section between musician performs and final mix is done, right? Now we can multi-track record, we can edit, we can mix, we can do lots of things. The goal is still the same. And I would argue the most important word for what you and I do in a studio is balance. It's really the most important thing any musician does. If I'm playing in a band, it's important, it's imperative that I balance myself against everyone else. People in the bluegrass world get this really well. A lot of times they'll gather around a single microphone, and if it's time for the mandolin solo, he'll lean in and play his solo, then he'll lean back out. They are balancing themselves against everyone else to provide a good, pleasant, balanced listening experience. As studio folks, that's our job as well. Now, you may think I'm just talking about balancing faders, and that's a big part of it. I think too many people skip past that part of the mixing phase. They throw up some faders, and then they start reaching for plugins. Plugins are great. You're going to get to those plugins, but you need to spend a good amount of time making sure that everything is balanced on the faders, that you don't have crazy things out of balance just on a volume level that you're then trying to fix with plugins when you really could have fixed them by simply turning it down. But balancing levels isn't the only way that we affect balance. Everything we do is about balance. When I use an EQ, what am I doing? I'm balancing frequencies. There's too much mid-range, so I'm going to balance it out with EQ so it is a more balanced sound. One of the common terms you hear with regards to compression is this term even out. We're going to use compression to even out the vocal performance. What's another word for even out? Balance. We're going to make sure these loud sections are a little quieter, these quiet sections are a little louder, so the vocal is more in balance with itself. Panning is another big one. If I'm going to record this killer guitar part and I'm going to pan it to the left, guess what? There needs to be something panned to the right that is going to balance the two so that my mix doesn't sound super lopsided. Okay, so what does that mean for you in your studio? It's really simple. If you're not happy with the results you're getting in your studio, there's a good chance you are distracted by something other than balance. Whether you're writing a song, recording guitar parts, mixing a song, or doing a final master, balance needs to be the thing that's front and center in your brain. Everything else falls in line once you're thinking about making things balanced. Quick side note, when I say balanced, I don't mean perfectly matched. I just mean everything is working well together. The lead vocal absolutely should be louder than the shaker track, but that is a good balance between the two. I'm not saying everything needs to be the same volume. That's absurd. But I am saying everything needs to find its place both volume-wise, in the stereo spectrum, and in the EQ curve. I believe I can fly. Okay, that's it for me. If you want to learn more about how I go about getting a balanced mix and my process that I apply to every single mix I do, you need to check out my 5-step mix guide. It's absolutely free. It'll walk you through the process in just a couple of pages, and by the end of it, you'll be super excited to jump into your studio and go mix a song. Check it out now at 5stepmix.com. See ya.